Welcome back, everyone, to the deep dive. We often talk about blessings, but today we're really going to dive deep into the concept. You've brought some interesting thoughts to the table from a source called Our Daily Bread that I think will help us do just that.
Yeah, I'm really glad we're digging into this. So many people think blessings are just about luck or, working hard. But our daily bread piece, it takes a very different angle. They suggest that all blessings actually come from a higher power.
So not just about, putting in the effort and getting lucky, but something bigger than that.
Hmm.
Interesting. And they specifically bring up James 1:1, something about every good and perfect gift coming from above. Does that mean they believe every good thing, even little things like a pretty sunset or a good cup of coffee, comes directly from God?
Well, that's a really good question. And it gets to the heart of how people interpret this idea. Some might say, yeah, God is orchestrating every single detail, while others might say he's working more through natural processes. But either way, the main point seems to be that recognizing there's something greater at play, that all these good things are gifts in some way, well, it helps us develop a sense of gratitude. And that can really change our outlook on life.
So instead of just enjoying that sunset, I'm also supposed to think, hey, this is a gift and feel thankful for it.
Yeah.
I get it. But our daily bread doesn't just stop there, does it? It's not like we just say thanks and move on.
You're absolutely right. The message is that these blessings, they actually have a deeper purpose than just, making us feel good. It's almost like they're designed to shape us in some way, to bring us closer to God,
Yeah.
and even to influence how we act in the world.
And that makes me think of that saying, to whom much is given, much is expected. Are they saying something similar here? That there's a responsibility that comes with receiving blessings?
There are definitely some parallels there. They use the term stewardship, which implies that we're not just given these gifts for ourselves, but we're entrusted with them. They even bring up Romans 2.4, which says God's kindness is meant to lead to repentance. What do you think about that idea, that blessings can lead to a change of heart or direction?
It's an interesting idea. It makes me think about those times when something that seemed bad at first, like losing a job, ended up leading to something so much better. Do you think that those tough experiences could actually be blessings in disguise, kind of pushing us in a new direction?
That's a really thoughtful point. And it actually ties into what Our Daily Bread says about blessings not always being easy or comfortable. Often, they're opportunities for growth, even if that growth comes with challenges. And they give some pretty powerful examples, like stories of people who went through really tough times but actually found their faith grew stronger because of it.
So it's not about God giving us a smooth, easy life, but about Him using even the tough stuff to help us grow and deepen our connection with Him. But how does all this actually play out on our everyday lives? Do they give any specific examples?
They do, and this is where it gets really interesting. One example they focus on is how blessings can actually shape our character. Like, imagine someone who has always had everything handed to them, They might not develop resilience or learn to really appreciate what they have. But someone who's faced adversity and overcome it, they've probably developed strength and gratitude that wouldn't have been there otherwise.
I see what you mean. Like, going through those challenges actually builds qualities you wouldn't get from an easy life. Makes sense. But what about this idea of stewardship? Using blessings to benefit others. Where does that fit in?
That's where this whole idea of being a blessing comes in. The source really emphasizes that we're not meant to just keep our blessings to ourselves, but let them flow outward, become kind of like channels of generosity and grace.
Okay, so it's not about personal gain, but using what we've received to uplift others. I get that.
Yeah.
But how do they suggest we actually do that? It's easy to say, be a blessing. But how do we put it into action in our everyday lives?
Well, they actually break it down into a few key areas. One is being generous with our resources, and that could mean money, of course, but also time, talents.
Yeah.
Even just offering a kind word, It's about understanding that everything we have is a gift and being willing to share those gifts freely.
So not just writing a check to charity, but being generous in all aspects of life. Makes sense. But what about people who are struggling themselves? Those who might say, hey, I can barely make ends meet. How can I be expected to be generous?
That's a really valid point. And the source does acknowledge that generosity can look different for different people. It's not about giving beyond our means, but about having a generous spirit however we can. Even just a smile or a listening ear can be a huge blessing to someone who's going through a tough time.
That's a good reminder that generosity isn't just about material things. What other ways do they talk about being a blessing?
Another big area they focus on is service. This could look like volunteering our time or using our skills to help people or simply being there for someone in need. And just recognizing the needs around us and responding with compassion and action.
I like that. It's going beyond just giving stuff to actually using our talents and abilities to make a real difference.
Yeah.
Do they give any real-life examples of this kind of service?
Oh, absolutely. One that comes to mind is a story about a woman who used her baking skills to bless people in her community. She started baking bread for a local homeless shelter, and eventually it grew into a whole bakery that created jobs and training opportunities for people who are struggling to get back on their feet.
Wow, that's amazing. It shows how something as simple as baking can really have a ripple effect and create some serious positive change. But it also makes me wonder, how do we figure out what kind of service we're each called to do?
Yeah.
The world's a big place with a lot of needs.
That's where discernment comes in. And the source emphasizes the importance of prayer and, really listening to that inner voice that guides us toward our purpose. It's not about finding the biggest, most impressive way to serve, but being faithful in the small things, following those nudges we get, and trusting that even little acts of kindness can make a real difference.
It's kind of reassuring, actually. It takes the pressure off, feeling like we have to fix everything, just focusing on the needs that are right in front of us and responding with love and action. But what about the eternal perspective? Earlier they were saying that blessings have meaning even beyond this life. How do they connect those dots?
Well, this is where they introduce this idea of investing in what lasts. They use the analogy of building a house. If we build it on sand, it's going to crumble when the storms come. But if we build on solid ground, it can withstand anything. They suggest that, material possessions and worldly achievements are kind of like building on sand, while investing in our relationship with God and using our blessings to help others is like building on solid rock.
Okay, so it's about prioritizing things that have lasting value, not just temporary gain.
Yeah.
Makes sense. But what does that look like in practical terms? How do we actually invest in that relationship with God and make sure our actions have that kind of eternal impact?
They point to a few key principles. One is cultivating gratitude. Just taking the time to appreciate the blessings we have, big and small, recognizing them as gifts from a loving God. It shifts our focus from a sense of entitlement to a sense of wonder and thankfulness.
It's like that saying, gratitude unlocks the fullness of life. But they don't just want us to feel grateful, right? There's more to it.
Right. Gratitude's the foundation, but it's meant to lead to action. They encourage us to be intentional about using our blessings to be a blessing to others. Become conduits of that same generosity and love we've received.
So it's about completing the cycle, receiving with gratitude, and then letting it flow outward, making a difference in the lives of others. I like that. But I'm wondering, how can we be sure our actions are truly coming from that eternal perspective? How do we make sure we're not just doing good deeds to make ourselves look good or get something in return?
That's such an important question. And our daily bread really stresses the importance of checking our motives. They suggest asking ourselves, why am I doing this? Is it truly out of love for others and wanting to honor God? Or am I seeking praise or recognition? It's about making sure our actions are rooted in love and humility, not self-interest.
It's like that saying, it's not about who gets the credit, it's about getting the work done. So not bragging or seeking attention for doing good deeds, but doing them quietly from a pure heart. But what about when we mess up? What if our intentions are good, but our actions don't have the impact we hoped for?
That's where grace comes in. The source reminds us that we're all human. We're going to make mistakes. The important thing is to learn from them, ask for forgiveness, and just keep striving to do better.
That's good to hear. It's not about being perfect, but about having a sincere desire to grow and learn. But I'm curious, how can we even tell if we're on the right track? How do we measure that eternal impact of our actions?
That's a question that doesn't have a simple answer, and our daily bread acknowledges that we may not always see the full results of our efforts in this lifetime, but they encourage us to have faith that even the smallest acts of kindness and love can have a ripple effect that goes way beyond what we can see.
It's kind of a mind-blowing concept.
Yeah.
That something seemingly insignificant can have a lasting impact. It's like the butterfly effect. How one small change can trigger huge changes elsewhere.
Exactly. And that's where faith comes in, trusting that even when we can't see the whole picture, our actions are contributing to something bigger than ourselves.
Wow, this has been such an eye-opening conversation. I feel like we've really gone deeper than just blessings are nice things and explored some really profound concepts.
Yeah.
But I know we need to wrap up soon. Is there one final point from our daily bread that you think is really important for our listeners to take away?
Yes, definitely. One more thought that I think is absolutely essential. They challenge us to shift our focus from why am I blessed to what is God calling me to do, the blessings he has given me. It's about moving from a passive mindset of receiving to an active mindset of using those blessings to make a difference in the world.
That's a powerful call to action. Instead of just counting our blessings, we're being challenged to put them to work, become channels of God's love and generosity.
Exactly. And that's where the true fulfillment lies, not in holding on to blessings for ourselves, but in using them to bring light and hope to others.
So well said. This has been such an amazing discussion. We're going to pause here for a moment to let all this sink in, and then we'll be back with some final thoughts and a challenge for all of you listening. Stay tuned. All right, welcome back, everyone. It's been quite a deep dive today, hasn't it? We've gone way beyond just thinking of blessings as, lucky breaks or good fortune.
Yeah, for sure. I think we've really unpacked some interesting ideas about the true meaning of blessings and how they fit into a bigger picture.
Absolutely. So for those of you who've been with us on this journey, let's try to sum up some key takeaways. It really hit me how the source, our daily bread, emphasized that seeing God's hand in the good things is the key to genuine gratitude. It's not just about feeling happy, it's about recognizing those things as gifts.
Right, and that gratitude, as we talked about, shouldn't be passive. They made a strong argument that blessings should push us to act, to be better people, and to spread that good outward. It's like they're fuel for growth and positive change.
Exactly. It's a what can I do with this kind of gratitude.
Yeah.
And they use that powerful term stewardship, suggesting we're entrusted with these gifts for a reason.
And they provided some really compelling examples of how that stewardship can play out in real life. Generosity, not just with money, but with everything we have, our time, talents, even just kind words. Service, where we actually use our abilities to address the needs of others. And of course, sharing the ultimate blessing, which they say is faith and hope.
It's a lot to digest. But I think the most powerful takeaway for me is the idea of shifting our focus from asking, why am I blessed, to what am I supposed to do with these blessings? It takes the focus off of us and puts it on the positive impact we can make.
I totally agree. It's a much more empowering way to look at it. We become conduits of generosity, kindness, and good rather than just recipients.
Exactly. So to everyone listening, we really hope this deep dive has given you something to think about. Perhaps this week, you could reflect on the blessings in your own life, no matter how big or small. Don't just stop there, though.
Think about it. What is the purpose of these blessings? How have they shaped you? And how can you use them to make a difference in the world around you? Remember, even small acts of kindness can have far-reaching effects.
Beautiful. And keep in mind, it doesn't have to be perfect. Just take that first step. Listen to your heart and have faith that even small actions can contribute to something truly meaningful. Thanks for joining us today on The Deep Dive. It's been a pleasure exploring this with you, and we hope you'll continue to think about this in your own life.